popular story tells about a meeting that may have taken place in the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago in 1923. I say it might have taken place because lately there's been some discussion that it might be just legend and maybe that meeting never actually took place. We're not certain of that. But what we can be certain of is that the 9 men that were supposed to have met on that occasion were in fact among the richest and most influential people at that time. And we do know for a fact what took place in the next 25 years of their lives. The people that were supposed to be there at that location were Charles Schwab, the president of the world's largest independent steel company, Samuel Insull, the president of the world's largest utility company, Howard Hobson, the president of the largest gas firm, Arthur Cutten, the greatest wheat speculator, Richard Whitney, the president of the New York Stock Exchange, Albert Fall, a member of the president's cabinet, Leon Fraser, the president of the Bank of International Settlements, Jesse Livermore, the greatest speculator in the stock market, and Ivar Kruger, the head of the company with the most widely distributed securities in the world. What happened with these men in the next 25 years? Well, Charles Schwab died in bankruptcy, living the last 5 years of his life borrowing from others just to be able to eat. Samuel Insull died virtually penniless after spending some time as a fugitive from justice. Howard Hobson became insane. Arthur Cutten died overseas, broke. Richard Whitney had spent time in a mental asylum. Albert Fall was released from prison so that he could die at home. Leon Fraser, Jesse Livermore, and Ivan Kruger each died at their own hand. They died by suicide in despair. Measured by the wealth and the power, the success that these men achieved in their lives, at least temporarily, it's amazing to see the decline. And to understand that their lives, after all, despite their momentary success, were not at all successful in nature. So I ask you this morning, what is a successful life? If those people who are at the A-list right now, those people that the world looks to as the most influential and the most successful people cannot be guaranteed to live successful lives, then what is a successful life? As the paths diverge before us in many different directions, which is the one that's going to lead us to happiness? Which is the one that's going to lead us to true contentment? The writer of Hebrews this morning would point the way for us. Our text this morning is Hebrews chapter 13. We're going to read just verse 5 for our text. And there we find these words. Make sure that your character is free from the love of money, being content with what you have. For he himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. What I want you to see here in our text this morning is, first of all, that happiness is not the product of wealth. Let me say that again. Happiness does not come from being wealthy. Our text warns us from having a love for money. It warns us against being corrupt in the desire to accumulate wealth. But that's against everything that our consumer culture is constantly saying to us. That's against everything that our culture around us is telling us is on the way to happiness. Late-night infomercials have proposed hundreds of programs, each one claiming to have the secret path to unimagined wealth that is available to you for only 5 easy payments of $49.95. You can find the way to a successful life if you'll purchase this product. And all of them, of course, are endorsed by a multi-millionaire who wants to share this information for you, this secret with you. And I would suspect that most of those men, if they are in fact multi-millionaires, became that way not from following their secret plan, but by selling programs to other people on how to get rich quick. selling things to people who are desperate to find happiness through wealth. The love for money fuels the government lottery programs, making revenue, selling us the lies that instant riches are to be had for the small price of a lottery ticket. After all, you can't win if you don't play. Las Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, each year fleece millions more people with their bright lights and their hollow promises wrapped in gaudy bows. The love of money is everywhere being promoted in our society. This is the way to success. This is the way to contentment. This is the way to happiness. You just have to get a hold of enough. You just have to be able to have a bigger bank account. You just have to be able to have more of the nice things in this world. And if you're able to do that, our society says, you're going to be satisfied. Only by obtaining to wealth can we find happiness. And if we fail to attain to wealth, and society says the best thing for us to do, the path to satisfaction, requires that we should attempt to drag others down to our level. That's right, if you can't get rich, then your goal in life is to drag other people down who have gotten rich, because they have something you weren't able to get. That's what our society holds up at all times for us. This is the path to satisfaction. But money can't buy what we need most. A young man growing up in the wrong part of Houston became a bully. He found out very young in life that he was bigger and stronger than others, and he would use that advantage for himself. He would get in fights in school and in his neighborhood. He soon began making money by beating other people up for it, mugging them for funds, and sometimes just doing it for fun. Sometimes just doing it because it was something he could do. He learned to box. He became pretty good at it. He made a small fortune boxing. He could have almost anything that could be purchased. He had a nice house, he had nice cars, he had many wonderful possessions, all due to the fact that he could beat other people up in the boxing ring. And then one day he heard his mother on the phone talking to his sister. She's talking about a favorite cousin of his that had been in a bad accident and was now in a coma. And the doctors weren't holding out much hope for him, either in the fact that he would ever recover from the coma, or in the fact that if he did recover from the coma, that he would have any mental activity left. They thought that he would be a vegetable for the rest of his life as the best case scenario. And when he heard this about what his favorite cousin was going through, he rushed into the room where his mother was making this phone call, and he started pleading with her. He said, "Use my money. Buy the best doctors. We'll fly them in here. We'll get him the very best treatments. We'll make sure that he beats this thing." So his mother talked to the boy's doctors, and she came back with a report to him. She said to him, the only hope he has now isn't in what you can buy. The only thing you can do for him is pray. And he knew what those words meant. It was hopeless. When everything was down to praying, it was hopeless. There's nothing he could buy. And so for the first time in his life, George Foreman got down on his knees and he prayed. Many of you know that after that point, he became an ordained minister. His life changed very much. But it came from that knowledge that there were things that he could not buy, precious things that could not be purchased. In a world where everything seems to have a price tag, we need to learn that the most essential things in life are the things that money can't buy. Money can buy medical care, but it can't buy health. Money can purchase a man an escort for the evening, or even a mail-order bride, but it can't buy love. Money can hire people to do your bidding, but it can't purchase loyalty. Money can purchase a new addition for the church building, complete with a brass plaque engraved with your record of your generosity on it. But it can't buy your salvation. Money can't purchase the things that we really need it to purchase if it was going to bring happiness and satisfaction to us. In fact, that's the real point here. It's not just that it's not sufficient, it can't satisfy. I'm reminded of the incident in the children's book by C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where Edmund has entered into the magical kingdom of Narnia, and there he meets up with the White Witch, the oppressor of Narnia, who has for years ruled over Narnia with an iron fist and caused the land to be reduced to a frozen state where it's always in the deep winter and spring never emerges from it. When the witch recognizes that he's a boy and she remembers the prophecy of 4 human children coming into the land and changing things, she decides that she's going to snare all the children. She only has one boy here, so she's going to use him to get to the others. And she treats him as if she was his best friend, invites him up on her sled with her, and starts feeding him Turkish Delight, which is a candy I think that probably doesn't taste all that good. But this was wonderful Turkish Delight. This Edmund could not get enough of. And the more he ate, the more he wanted, and was never satisfied. He had a craving that was becoming stronger and stronger in him. The more he ate of this candy, the less satisfied he was. Well, that's what seeking for wealth does to people. The more they have, the more they feel the need to have more. And the more that they want more, the less satisfied they are. Regardless of how much people surround themselves with all the things that money can buy, all the luxuries that life has to offer, the less satisfied that person actually becomes. We see scores of wealthy people extremely dissatisfied with their lives, chasing after more wealth, engaging in more excesses, seeking desperately for some sort of fulfillment. And sadly, the way that they are seeking to satisfy only induces more hunger in them. Now, I know right now, as I've said this, that a lot of people, maybe even some of you who are nodding here and agreeing that this is in line with the Scriptures, and this is true to all those human truisms that you've ever heard. Money can't buy you happiness, and you're in general agreement with that. I know a lot of you don't really believe it in your hearts. You don't really think that that's true. Maybe others have failed to find happiness there, but surely you would if only you could attain to that wealth. A nicer home, nicer clothes, a nicer car, the latest technological gadgets. Those are the things dreams are made of. Wealth will produce celebrity status and power. It's going to raise you above the rabble to become one of the gods of the consumer society, one of the idle rich. And you believe in your heart those promises that if only you could have a little bit more, if only you could attain to wealth, then you would truly be satisfied. And yet, I want to promise you this morning that never, never does it bring the happiness depicted in the entertainment and the commercial marketing. Wealth cannot purchase satisfaction. It's not that it usually doesn't purchase satisfaction. I want to tell you, wealth never purchases satisfaction. So our text tells us to get off the money merry-go-round and learn to be satisfied with what we have. Learn to be satisfied with wherever we're at in life and not always looking forward to something beyond what we have now that's going to make us finally satisfied in this world. Our passage tells us this morning to put away the love of money, and that real wealth lies in appreciating the riches of His presence. Real satisfaction comes from acknowledging His presence with us. Instead of seeking money to provide what we need to become dependent upon Him. Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 through 13 says this. I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know that it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Paul says there, it doesn't matter if I'm hungry or if I'm filled. It doesn't matter if I have much financial want or if I'm rich. He says, I've learned to be happy in every circumstance. I've learned to be content in every circumstance as I look to him and not to the things of this world. Look to him who gives me strength. When we're dependent upon our own resources, we are, after all, poor. It doesn't matter how much you have in the bank. It doesn't matter how much you're able to buy influence in this world. You're poor if you're dependent upon your own resources. Anything we can get for ourselves in this world is superficial in nature. It's doomed to come to an end. But when we seek him to provide for our needs, when we look to him to supply everything that we have need of, then the wealth is limitless. And the things that he provides for us are lasting. They do not fade away. But I want to tell you this morning, it's more than just having your needs met. It's not just a matter of being able to get by, to make do. We need to find happiness in our present condition. How can we become content? How can we become truly satisfied, pleased with life, where we're at, with what we have? The text again tells us to forget about money as the way to fulfillment and to seek a relationship with the Lord. For he himself has said, you see this tacked on to the end of our passage, for he himself has said, I will never desert you, nor will I ever forsake you. That wasn't tacked onto this as something which is a different thought that just, well, I'll just write this at the end of this passage here. No, it's the key to what's being said here. He says, don't cultivate a love for money because it can't satisfy. Be satisfied with where you're at and know the riches you have in life. In the promise of one who's promised to always be there with you. It's the presence of the Lord that makes us rich, and not the desire for things. It's his presence when we seek it that provides satisfaction. We will never be destitute if we know that he is always with us. We can find no greater riches than that of his loving fellowship. When we want more than anything else to be close to him, that's where we find the key to real satisfaction. When our heart's desire is not in getting ahead in this world, but being closer to him, that's a fulfillment that doesn't fade. Being with him completes us in a way that nothing else can. His presence turns a hovel into heaven. It makes a prison to become a palace. It turns a shack into a sanctuary. His presence makes all the difference. Seeking his presence changes everything in our lives. When we concentrate on his presence rather than material things, it opens our eyes up to see the good in people who are around us. It allows us to see meaning even in the trivial things in our daily lives. It allows us to see hope where other people despair. It takes our trials and makes them into opportunities to lean on him and to grow in the process. It makes us truly rich beyond our dreams. It puts a smile on our face. I see those people jumping with elation when they won the lottery. Those people in Vegas who are celebrating because the roulette wheel stopped on the right number. I see those people who think that they're happy because they finally arrived when they've stumbled into riches. But that smile doesn't stay on their face. The persistent smile, the one that stays with us in our lives, is when we have presence with us, and we delight in that presence. That's a smile no circumstance in this world can take away from you. That's a contentment which seeps into even the meanest circumstances that we experience in this world. You want to find contentment? It's in the presence of the Lord. It's in seeking to be with Him in all things. In relying upon those promises that He is with us always and will never forsake us. By the way of invitation this morning, I want to ask you, would you know real riches in His presence? Would you invite Him into your life? If this morning that's a decision you want to make, we're going to invite you to come forward as we stand and as we sing our invitation song, Surrender. Will you surrender yourself to Him today? Let's do it as we stand.